So yes, hi everyone. My name's Charlotte and I'm currently working at Flinders Medical Centre as a clinical dietitian. Over the next 10 or so minutes, what I'm going to cover is sort of eating well, the benefits of eating well after a diagnosis of prostate cancer. As alluded to before, we'll also bust some common nutrition myths related to cancer. I'll share some tips on eating well following a diagnosis of prostate cancer, and I'll touch on the impact that treatment side effects have on nutrition. So, to begin with, what actually are the benefits of eating well after a diagnosis of prostate cancer? Following a balanced diet that meets your nutritional requirements can help you to cope better with treatment side effects and to recover sooner. It helps wounds and damaged tissues to heal because your body has sufficient energy to build new tissues. It helps you to maintain muscle strength and a healthy weight, as the body doesn't have to break down its own fat and muscle stores to get that energy. It helps you to feel energized, and ultimately it helps to lower the chance of cancer recurring. So I guess when we think of eating well, we often think of the term healthy, but what really is healthy? It's very important that we recognise a number of factors influence what we eat and determine to be good for us. Things like our beliefs, our food access, our philosophy, media and marketing as well. And I guess thanks to Google, there is an overwhelming amount of information out there about what we should be eating. Sometimes this information is even contradictory, and this makes it tricky to determine fact from fiction. So to make things a little clearer, let's bust a few common nutrition myths that are related to cancer. So myth number one, which I'm sure a lot of you have probably heard before, is that sugar causes cancer. Sugar does not cause cancer, and a lot of incorrect publications outline that it does, and it often is spoken that it makes cancer cells grow faster, which is simply incorrect. All of our body cells, including cancer cells, use blood glucose, which is a sugar, for energy. Blood glucose comes from breaking down simple and complex carbohydrates, and this is from foods like bread, pasta, dairy, lollies, starchy vegetables, and yeah, that happens once they've been eaten. However, giving more sugar to cancer cells does not speed up their growth, and similarly, depriving cancer cells of sugar doesn't slow their growth. They simply will get their fuel from other sources, such as proteins and fat. It is, however, important that we remember a high sugar diet can lead to weight gain and increase the risk of obesity and diabetes, which will then in turn increase the risk of cancer. I guess the key takeaways from this slide is that sugar does not cause cancer or increase the rate of growth, and for general health, avoiding excessive amounts of sugar in your diet is always a good idea. Myth number two is that a certain food causes cancer. It's unlikely that any one food or food additive causes cancer. It's more likely a combination of poor eating habits and other lifestyle factors. Over a long period of time, these things coming together may increase the risk of developing some cancers. These high-risk lifestyle factors that I'm talking about include things like smoking, drinking alcohol, too little exercise, being overweight or obese, and too much sunlight exposure. However, research has found that excessive intake of processed and red meat can increase your risk of cancers, particularly bowel and stomach cancer. The World Health Organization have classified processed meats like ham and salami as a group 1 carcinogen, and this means there's strong evidence that they cause cancer. Red meat, such as beef, lamb and pork, have been classified as a group 2A carcinogen, and this means that they probably cause cancer. In saying this, the Cancer Council have recognised that lean red meat is a really important contributor to dietary iron, zinc, vitamin B12 and protein, and therefore they're recommending that you avoid excessive consumption instead of removing it altogether. They suggest limiting processed meat in your diet where possible, and eating no more than 1 serve of lean red meat per day or 2 serves 3 to 4 times per week. As you can see in the pictures on the slide, 1 serve is equal to half a cup of mince or 1 lamb chop. The key point here is to remember that no single food causes cancer, so you should enjoy a variety of foods and enjoy red meat in moderate amounts. So the final myth that we're going to bust today is that a certain food cures cancer. You may have come across some websites claiming that foods such as soy and pomegranate improve prostate health, pain, and cancer progression. High-quality research, however, has shown no evidence that these two foods in particular will improve cancer progression. In fact, there's no evidence to prove that eating any particular food or supplement can cure cancer. It's important to also be really wary of advice that suggests eliminating a food or a whole food group from your diet. Following this advice may negatively affect your health, as each food group provides unique health benefits. The key point here is to remember that eating a wide variety of foods from the 5 food groups helps to ensure that you get all the nutrients, vitamins, and minerals that you need. So, now that we've been through and determined that no one particular food causes or cures cancer, what do we actually know to be true and beneficial when it comes to eating after a diagnosis of prostate cancer? I guess the best way to sort of cover this off quickly is to go through 4 helpful tips for eating well after a diagnosis of prostate cancer. So tip number 1 is to enjoy a wide variety of nutritious foods from the 5 food groups every day. Each food group provides unique health benefits, which is why all 5 are needed in a healthy diet. The 5 groups are outlined in the picture on the slide, and just to go through them quickly, fruit and vegetables are rich in vitamins and minerals. A high intake of fruit and veg is associated with lower health risks, including lower risks of cancer. When you are shopping for your fruit and veg, it's important that you choose different varieties and different colours to make sure that you're getting all the nutrients that you need. Dairy and alternatives include milk, yogurt and cheese, and the non-dairy alternatives to these, so things like soy and nut milks. Dairy is a really good source of calcium, which is an important mineral for bone strength. As talked about briefly before, some prostate cancer treatments like androgen deprivation therapy can reduce bone density, so good dairy intake provides the body with calcium to help counteract this, especially when it's coupled with exercise that stimulates bone growth. If you do choose non-dairy alternatives like those nut milks, make sure that they're calcium fortified by checking the label on the back of the packet, and that will state whether it's included or not. So lean meats and alternatives include things like lean red meat, chicken, nuts and seeds, tofu and beans. And these are an excellent source of protein, which is needed to both keep your muscles and your immune system strong. Finally, grain foods include things like bread, rice, pasta, and oats. And your wholemeal and whole grain varieties are preferable because they provide more dietary fibre, vitamins and minerals than refined grain foods. Grain foods have been found to protect us against heart disease, type 2 diabetes and excessive weight gain, and they may even help to reduce the risk of some cancers. So this slide just shows some examples of what one serve of each of the food groups looks like. And for the most health benefit, the Australian Dietary Guidelines recommend that men eat 2 serves of fruit a day, 5 serves of veggies, 2.5 to 3.5 serves of dairy, 2.5 to 3 serves of lean meat, and 4.5 to 6 serves of grains every day. So tip number 2 is to follow the healthy plate model when you're serving up your lunch and dinner meals. And this model can really help you to meet the suggested serves of vegetables, lean meats and alternatives, and grain foods. To assemble a healthy dinner plate, it's all about filling half the plate with those non-starchy, colourful vegetables, a quarter of the plate with lean protein, so like we discussed before, chicken, fish, lean red meat, beans and legumes, and then filling the final quarter with whole grains or starchy vegetables like brown rice, wholemeal pasta or potato. Tip number 3 is to limit your intake of foods that contain saturated fats, added salt and added sugars. Unfortunately, some foods and drinks don't fit into those 5 food groups that we've discussed before, and that's because they're not necessary for a healthy diet, and they're too high in either saturated fat, sugars and or salt. These foods are called discretionary foods, and they're also often high in energy or kilojoules. They can take the place of other more nutritious foods, and they're associated with an increased risk of obesity and chronic diseases like heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, and some forms of cancer. To limit your intake of these foods, it's important to try limiting foods that contain saturated fats like butter, cream, coconut and palm oil, and instead replacing them with foods that contain predominantly polyunsaturated or monounsaturated fats. And this is things like olive and vegetable oil and spreads, nut butters and avocado. It's important to try avoiding adding salt at the table, and when you're buying packaged foods, read the labels to choose lower sodium options among similar items. Finally, limit your intake of discretionary foods such as biscuits, cakes, fried foods and crisps to 0 to 2.5 serves per day. So tip number 4, which is the final tip, is that if you do choose to drink alcohol, do so in moderation. Studies have found that regular consumption of even small amounts of alcohol were associated with an increased risk of dying from prostate cancer. Australian guidelines recommend that healthy adults drink no more than 10 standard drinks in a week, or no more than 4 standard drinks on any one day to reduce your lifetime risk of harm from alcohol-related disease or injury. And this image on the slide just shows what one standard drink of different types of alcohol looks like. To conclude this presentation, it's really important that we remember that the side effects of cancer treatments like chemo, radiotherapy and hormone therapy can really impact upon nutrition. Some side effects include nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, constipation, taste changes, loss of appetite and many more. If you do experience any of these, you might find it useful to start eating small, frequent meals and snacks instead of focusing on 3 large meals throughout the day. If you do notice that you're starting to lose weight, adding in some extra nutritious snacks and drinks throughout the day can really help to try and meet your nutritional requirements. Do remember too, an accredited practicing dietitian can provide individualised strategies to help minimise and manage treatment side effects. And these dietitians can be accessed at any stage of the prostate cancer journey to assist in optimising your diet, be it to meet nutritional requirements or even for weight loss as well. So to summarise, eating well during all stages of the prostate cancer treatment and prevention journey is important. Research has shown that men who maintain a healthy diet are less likely to get advanced prostate cancer, and they're more likely to have good outcomes when they do have prostate cancer. It's also outlined that no single food causes or cures cancer. Finally, remember the basics for eating well. This includes eating a variety of fruits and vegetables, lean proteins, reduced fat dairy, whole grains, and good unsaturated fats. Enjoying red meats in moderate amounts, avoiding excess saturated fat, salt, sugar, and alcohol, and seeking professional advice if needed. And this final slide just has a few resources for either support or extra information moving forward. But yeah, thanks for listening.